Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy Siskind. I'm the author of Solo Standards for Piano, Playing Solo Jazz Piano, and the Jazz Piano Fundamentals series consisting of 3 books. One is for absolute jazz beginners, book 2 is after book 1, and book 3 is specifically about modal and modern jazz. And today I want to give you my best answer to a really common, a really crucial, and a really difficult question. And that question is, how do we build freedom in both hands to coordinate between both of our 2 hands in jazz, right? When we jazz, of course, the improvisation, the solo is usually happening in the right hand, but we rely on the left hand to also be really contributing, to be comping, to be responding to the right hand. And most piano students, most amateurs, consider one or the other to be hard enough, right? Just playing a good improvisation is plenty hard without thinking about comping and having good rootless voicings and good articulation and all of those things, not to mention balance between the 2 hands. So I'm going to do my best to answer how to cultivate this, but first I just want to say that this is not a easily or quickly solvable problem. I would say my first big piece of advice is to be patient with yourself. Think about this sort of thing on language learning timeline. Okay. While you're speaking that language in the first couple years, you might be able to focus on your accent, but not your verb tense. You might be able to focus on whether words are masculine or feminine, but then forget whether you're talking in the past or present tense. We can only really do one thing at a time consciously. So the process then is to do 2 things at the beginning. One is to get good enough in your accompanying hand, which is going to be your left hand in this case. And then the second thing is to be really patient and work to automate one hand. And this is really the process to me, is automation. Now, how do you do those 2 things, right? How do you get good enough in the left hand? And how do you learn how to automate it? Well, the first few things that I want to show you are from my book. These are from Playing Jazz Piano Fundamentals, book 1. And I do have a series of coordination exercises, and I highly recommend doing something like this while you're studying. So this is coordination exercise number 2. Let's see, I'm on page 28, and it shows a major scale in the right hand coordinated with a Charleston rhythm in the left hand. And this is for relative, beginners. It's just the Charleston rhythm. This is simply a single chord played in root position. Like, we're really doing the basics of coordination here. So I'll play this for you. The letter A has the Charleston rhythm. And for me, even having done this as many years as I've done this and reaching whatever goals I've reached, I'm still going back and forth consciously and checking in between the 2 hands. I cannot hold 2 things in my mind at once. So I'm checking in, is the left hand articulation good? Is the right hand articulation good? How's the balance, right? Constantly checking in, moving your brain between those different parts. And then letter B is doing that same scale with the reverse Charleston. Letter C alternates, 1 measure Charleston, 1 measure reverse Charleston. Okay, for many of you who watch this channel, this is a little basic for you. I'll show you some more advanced stuff. I'm not going to play letter D, but it does the opposite. It's 1 bar Charleston, 1 bar reverse Charleston, then 1 bar Charleston. So I recommend that instead of a quote-unquote normal scale exercise, you do something like this that's immediately practicing the coordination. And subsequent chapters of this book, as the students are learning new things, do different versions of the coordination exercise. So for instance, coordination exercise 3 has a 2-5-1. The right hand's still just playing the major scale. But the left hand is working its way through a 2-5-1 in very simple, clear voicings. Not professional level jazz voicings yet, but now, I arrange this in a step-by-step manner so that now the pianist has to practice changing chords in the left hand, but they've already been practicing this rhythm and they've been practicing the scale, so hopefully it's not too difficult. Now, it's actually very fortuitous that we're right at the point of the book in which 2-5-1 licks are introduced, because one of the things that it says is that when practicing a lick, you should do 4 things. First thing is practice with a good swing feel. So think about articulation and accents and how you want to play it and play it with a good swing feel. But number 2 is immediately practice coordinating that lick with comping patterns in the left hand. So if your lick, well, I'll show you what the first lick in the book is. So can you play that while you comp in the left hand, right? Can you play that along with a reverse Charleston? Whatever comping patterns you're working on, and in my first level, we're really just sticking with the Charleston and reverse Charleston, you want to practice coordinating. Okay. There's more coordination exercises in here. Let's see, I'll show you one more. So the next one is working on, conceptualizing the modes. So the left hand should look basically the same as before, although the rhythms changed to the reverse Charleston. But now the right hand is giving you different versions of the C major scale. Right? And so we want to do this in every key. Do it in every key until these things can get somewhat automated, right? Automated means we're doing them without thinking about them. I have a friend who advocates for practicing 2-5-1 kind of comping in the left hand while you read a novel or you read the TV guide, if that even exists anymore, or a phone book or just something in the right hand, so you get used to separating that part of the brain from the part that's more active and conscious. Now, for me, a really important next step, and this is assigned in the book, is to, let's go over here, is to apply that to a tune. So if you're working on that Charleston rhythm with root position chords, go to All of Me and figure out how to play this melody using those comping rhythms. Now, for me, at the beginning, I had to write this out. And there's 2 ways, or more than 2, I'm sure, but 2 ways I want to talk about that you can write it out. So the first is to create a new piece of music that has a bass clef staff and to write the entire thing out. And I do this a lot for my students who take my Fullerton class. For instance, here's corner pocket, and I actually require them to write out the chords in the comping rhythm, how they're going to be played, right? So it becomes almost like a classical piece. And this way you're giving yourself a little bit of a leg up. But the other way to write this out, if you don't need the notes of the chord, I always have students put X's. So let's pretend like we're going to use this Charleston rhythm on beat 1 and the and of 2. And I have them place X's right where that left hand is going to fall. Because the hard part about coordination, I think, is figuring out what comes together and what comes not together. And I do find that the hardest part is usually figuring out what comes together. I'm going to say something that's really either obvious or profound. There's no real such thing as hand independence so long as our hands are sharing a brain, right? The brain does not split itself in 2, But what the brain can do is give the illusion of independence if you really understand coordination well, or maybe let's say it in a catchier way. If you understand the way that hands are dependent, and they can be dependent on a high level, you can give the illusion of independence, right? So when we're doing this sort of thing, coordinating this comping rhythm through the melody of a tune, we're discovering where the hands are dependent, or maybe how the hands are dependent. Interesting. Right, like this moment's tricky to play that comp right before the F. It's really bang bang, right? A bang bang play, as they would say in baseball. Okay, now I've been practicing a lot. I can do that. For a lot of students out there, that's not so simple. So I recommend, doing this with any 10, 15 tunes, right? And you'll evolve your voicing style as well to have rootless voicings, is what I'm trying to say. That's going to be your path to getting these basic jazz rhythms down. Now, obviously, this is just a first step. You don't want to be comping the Charleston rhythm all the time. You don't want to be comping a repetitive rhythm all the time. But this is a good start to figuring out how to coordinate the hands, because what we're going to be able to do is work towards getting that left hand automated where we want it to be, and then we can call it into the forefront where we want it to be. So if I'm playing all of me, maybe I'll have, the first measure I did play the Charleston rhythm, but then the second one, we've got a rest at the beginning. So it'd be nice to do something a little bit more active. So I'd put in an extra comp, I put in a push-off. Right, and then maybe I don't need to play the left hand in measure 3. The right hand's outlining the chord, so I'll rest in the left hand. And then maybe I want to have the right hand and left hand together for a part of the second line. So those are all now conscious decisions that I'm making, but I've got enough kind of options automated that if I want to go into my unconscious zone, I totally can. All right? So I wish I had news for you that was like, I have this one secret hint to hand coordination. If I have secret hints, it's practice, write on your music to help yourself make the coordination easier, and work towards automation. You're not going to get every single thing done immediately, but you can automate some simple comping patterns through sheer force of correct repetition. And then make sure that hand coordination is a part of your daily warm-up practice. When you're doing scales and arpeggios, make sure that you're coordinating it with some sort of a comping rhythm in the left hand. So all the examples that I showed you were from Jazz Piano Fundamentals Book 1, which really is for students who are just launching into their jazz experience. I highly recommend it. And why don't you say something about dependence, independence, interdependence if you've watched all the way to the end. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention. I'm happy coordinating.